Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. This is your host, Amina Ahmed, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Welcome back to Next Gen, where we speak with young people on the issues of their community that they are addressing head on. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Apple TV as well. Now, on Next Gen, we've discussed a variety of issues ranging from human rights and the crises across the globe. But an issue that we haven't covered yet is young Muslims struggling with their identity and their faith and what they can do to actually hold on to that faith, especially living in the West in a world where they are a minority, a country where they are a minority. What can they do to hold on to their faith? The Prophet, peace be upon him, narrated that there will come a time when for my ummah, holding on to their faith will be like holding on to a piece of hot coal. Many of the leaders of our community and even those of the young generation can attest to that today in this country, holding on to our iman, our faith, feels like holding on to a piece of hot coal. And in order to discuss what we can do to address those struggles, we have with us firstly Noor Alkhawam, who is a senior at the University of Texas at Dallas, studying healthcare management. She's been co-coordinating the Sisters YM Irving for the past 2 years and has been leading the expansion of YM Dallas. She's extremely passionate about helping the youth have a voice in the community, and her goal is to, inshallah, create a generation that is not only leaders in our community, but in the nation, in our country, inshallah. That is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Noor, for the work that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
For sure. Noor, you have been doing a lot of work with your community, with the young people in your community for the past 2 years. What are, your experiences with that, with these young people and their relationship with their faith?
Mm-hmm. So I think like the number one thing is just seeing a very large scope of identities. Just because I grew up in an elementary school where I was like with a lot of non-Muslims, and so then I had a very big transition between my elementary schools and then going to Islamic school, and so it was like either of the like two extremes. But then I went into YM, and alhamdulillah, I was able to meet a very large amount of girls from like all over the world. And like it was a very eye-opening thing, because sometimes whenever I wouldn't be comfortable with like speaking or addressing to like certain things with my friends, or with the people that I grew up with, it was very comfortable with these girls. And I feel like the reason why it was like such a good atmosphere is because everyone came from a different background, right? So it wasn't like everyone came from a private school or a public school. Everyone was like, there was homeschool, there was people that maybe didn't really do schooling, but they did like Islamic education. So I feel like that was the best like kind of variety I could have got. And if I was like kind of feeling this way, I'm pretty sure like everyone else was, because I don't know, it's just when we're in like these subculture groups where we think that everyone thinks the same way, that like refrains us from thinking bigger and like into different things. But being into like this very diverse and alhamdulillah like very beneficial group, I feel like that's the way like girls are able to like see different perspectives and talk about it in a very open communication environment.
That sounds so beautiful that you were in an environment with so many different Muslims that didn't come from, one pathway of life, different ethnicities, cultures, and backgrounds. That sounds like, very uniting and empowering in a way to know that all of these people from these different backgrounds are coming together to hopefully strengthen their faith and meet with people that, hope to do the same thing as well. And I think this would be a good time to bring in our next guest, Saira Amar from New York, who's a junior international relations major at Adelphi University, former United Nations youth representative for her university, a young Muslims national social media team, and New York's regional outreach leader. Thank you so much, Saira, for being with us. She's also a local Shura member in New York. Saira, your work is absolutely phenomenal as well. And you, like Noor, are working with the youth. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, Saira, what I want to ask you is, what are the struggles that you've seen young people in your experience, right? Being part of YM, the local Shura, what are the struggles that young Muslims in our generation are facing?
Honestly, that's a really, really good question. Like within my studies in international relations and just like seeing YM generally, I think I've narrowed it down to three things. The pressure of blending in Muslims in America, the resources of knowledge are completely mismanaged, and it's kind of this generational divide between old and young, and learning how to navigate that.
Right. So I like that you kind of separated it into these three different things, and hopefully we will go into those in detail a bit later. But both of you are young, visibly Muslim women, right? You know what that is like, what that comes with the discrimination, the bullying, the feeling of isolation at times. You know, being the only Muslim woman in a room is something that is a shared experience amongst Muslim women. But from the young people that you are seeing, how has their experiences being Muslim women been different from perhaps Muslim men or other women, their peers who are other women as well? How is the experience of Muslim women very, exclusive? Talk to us about that.
So I think like the number one thing is when it comes to representation, it's like kind of women have different standards than like a man, because if like a woman is doing the same exact thing as a man, it's like, oh no, the man is like up here and the woman stays down there. It's like the woman kind of has to like put in an extra effort and like kind of sometimes overburden herself when that really shouldn't be happening. I feel like that happens like in our youth society too, just because sometimes the brothers have a greater leap than us, than the sisters. That's my take. Saira, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the dot. Really, I feel like Muslim women just have a lot more and are pressured to do a lot more than Muslim men. For example, oh, it's hard to wear the hijab, etc. And so there are all these standards that we don't hold accountable to men.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think it's like the whole conversation of the standards for, people of color. Obviously, we are held up to a higher standard. But then when it comes to being a woman and being a Muslim and being a minority in so many different ways, all of that kind of feels, like that pressure on our back. And have you two felt any of that pressure? Right. You're a leader in your community. There is a regard and a standard that you constantly have to live up to. How has that been for you?
Yeah, I guess it's completely normal to feel up to that pressure. I feel like it's a commonality among Muslim women. And you know what? You just break through that pressure and you go through it. Noor, do you have anything to add on that?
I would just say like honestly, anytime that you feel like this very big struggle on your back, the minute like you kind of break away from it, you're like, I did that. And so it also like kind of goes back to that representation thing of like men and women. It's like, oh, this sister was able to do it. Like, and like I feel like slowly but surely like, people kind of recognize that. And so it does kind of help, but at the same time, it's like we have to go through an extra effort just to be recognized.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. That as Muslim women, we are constantly having to fight for our space. And in when we do get into that space, we can feel sometimes being that only woman in that room. But both of you, how did you get involved to getting to a point where you are helping other young people? You both are young as well, but you're there, you're inspiring other young people to connect with their faith. How did you get to that, and what inspired you?
So the way like I was kind of put into it is that alhamdulillah, I was like very active in my high school years. And so I think like that kind of reflected over people kind of choosing, because like you get not chosen, but you're like I don't know what the proper word is, but like they kind of see you as like an individual and then they come and ask you, right? And so I feel like if you are the person that is very passionate about wanting change for the youth, then you're gonna have to kind of show it, but at the same time, don't like exaggerate it where to a sense you're like, oh, pick me. But
Yeah.
I feel like every youth person that is passionate enough should be in the community, getting their activism on, their putting out their face, their name into wanting to be into something as great as either YM or anything else in the youth communities. But it starts with you. Everything starts with you.
Adding on to that, with the Gen Z standpoint, or Gen Z lingo, be humble. be ride with what you got and learn how to be active, but also be humble at the same time. And I think that like we all have our own stories about how we joined YM and the way we joined YM, but in the end, we're all soul sisters.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like what you said, right? Be humble, that even if you are at that position, and that's beautiful coming from both of you, because both of you are in positions where you have influence over other young people. And yet you're here telling us all, regardless of that, at the end, we are all sisters, right? We are all soul sisters, how you put it. And I think that is so beautiful. We'll continue talking about what we can do to get youth to, stick to their faith and how they can feel confident in their skin right after our short break. You're watching us on Galaxy 19 Satellite, MuslimNetwork.tv, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Apple TV as well. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Next Gen. I'm here with Saira and Noor, two young Muslim women who are leaders in their community, respectively in Dallas and in New York. They're involved in their YM and have been for the past couple of years. So to both of you, right, what can our community, the Muslim community, do to create safe spaces for young people to come to? What can they do to create an environment where young people feel comfortable and accepted?
It's a great question. I think the number one thing is, while the youth does have the responsibility to reach out, the people, like the older people in the community, can also reach out, get connected, and just have a humble, nice little conversation with, at least one person, maybe two. Just get to know someone one-on-one.
Yeah, just having that discussion, having that area of just talking about it and talking about this generational divide makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what are some strategies that you two have personally used to connect with your peers, to connect with other of your sisters in YM, and to have them feel comfortable in that environment? What have you guys done?
We've done a lot of like heavy icebreakers, like get to know each other on a personal level and then work our way up. So it doesn't, I mean, Dean is everything, but at the same time, sometimes we do kind of have these get-togethers and do focus on the dunya, because you can't be super serious about things all the time. You have to have a little bit of fun. So by having this fun, we kind of get to all these taboo or really just topics that we talk about and have proper discourse with, that we wouldn't have attained that level with without engaging our community or our sisters at that level of just getting to know one another, really.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, that was perfect, Saira. I would say like a lot of game bonding, boba bonding, froyo bonding, like anything that, people that are young are enjoying, like we're doing that too. So obviously, like just sometimes like having the intention of sisterhood makes it something that's, inshallah going to be rewarded. So sometimes it's just about laying back, watching a movie, but, thinking in your heart, like this is all for the sake of sisterhood.
Yeah, that is so cool. Boba bonding. I want to do that. Oh my God, invite me to your next boba bonding.
Hi, girl.
Feel free to come to any one of our neighbor nets. We're more than happy to have you.
Yeah, I've actually heard of NeighborNet. So there are multiple things, obviously, that as an organization, you guys are doing to reach out, to stay connected to each other. But earlier I asked you, what do you think the struggles of our community particularly the youth are? And I know that was a very broad question, but I have another broad question to follow that up with. What do you think our youth can do to stay connected to their faith? And I know that there are multiple answers to that, but from your experience with working with these young people, what can they do?
I would say one kind of advice suggestion I would have is make Islam not something about just worshiping, but something that you live your life by. So a lot of time people ask, hey, like, I want to become a better Muslim. Yeah, like I pray, I read Quran, but like that's kind of not the basics, but like just the, we're getting there. So I feel like the more you kind of start implementing and thinking about, God and, how the Prophet ﷺ would do something in like this situation, that's like the more you get into your faith, and that's like how you identify yourself, and, you just go about your day about like doing and thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, adding on to that, having a lot of dhikr and incorporating like Islam within your daily life. So, for example, for me, I like to incorporate it in my studies. I studied the dunya for a living, right? So, incorporating that and being like, oh, we're all going to end up at our Lord and Creator one day. So, you can incorporate your faith with all of your studies, and hopefully that would be one little way for you to be like, oh, it's 2:00. All right, so it's a hard time, So, by doing that, that could be one way for Muslim youth or Muslims in general to connect with their faith on a more personal level.
Yeah, and it seems like very little things to people, right? Incorporating zikr into your daily life, making istighfar and all of that, but it adds up, right? And there comes a point where it becomes a routine, right? You don't have to think about it consciously, you just start doing it. And that is some beautiful piece of advice for the young people who are watching. I hope that you can incorporate that into your daily life, inshallah. But particularly for young Muslim women, right, who might struggle with the hijab, who probably have already worn it, but now they have feelings of doubt, or some people who want to wear it, but there's something there that is stopping them. In regards to the hijab, is there any advice that you have for young Muslim women?
So we recently did, sorry.
Oh, you go first, don't worry.
We recently did a campaign about it, and one thing that someone mentioned is that you sometimes tell yourself, oh, when the right time comes for it, but you never know when that right time is. Like, you don't know even when you have the time. You don't know when it'll stop. So I think the number one thing I can say is that Shaitan will always be like, oh, delay it, delay it, delay it. But the minute you kind of, find it in your heart, just put it on. Like right at that second, just put it on. And the last thing I just wanted to mention real quick is making a lot of dua, because hijab is a form of guidance. Because, a lot of women, a lot of girls, they think that, oh, something it's like natural, or like, something will inspire my heart. And yes, it will, but you also want to keep on building that connection with your religion, with your Lord. And inshallah, like that's the best way you can kind of feel that, oh, I'm ready feeling.
You took the words out of my mouth, in all honesty. Take it easy. Learn that like a lot of it maybe has to do with fashion. You don't feel like you're fashionable in it, but when in reality the hijab empowers you to just be more fashionable and just work your ways around it, right? And beauty is in the eye of the beholder, So in the end, you're beautiful no matter what.
Yeah. And inshallah, there'll be barakah in it too, right? With those small steps. And I like how you said, take it easy. I think a lot of people put this pressure around it. And I think that's one of the reasons that it becomes so difficult for young women to actually start wearing the hijab, even if they want to. They just always have felt so pressurized. So hopefully to our young sisters who feel, insecure or who are hesitant to start it, hopefully they can take your advice. But before we do end here today, to the young people in our audience who are watching us today, what do you say to them who want to get involved in the community, who want to become leaders like you in their community? What can they do to get to that level?
Contact your local neighbornet. Figure out what other Muslim organizations are near you. Maybe it's the MSA, maybe it's YM, maybe it's NAS. You never know how many organizations there are near you, and utilize those resources and get to know each other more and be confident in your leadership skills. And bingo, that's a recipe for success.
Basically, start today. Start literally the minute you see something pop up on your feed. Be like, follow, like attend. That's the way you get involved. Just seeing it and like, just being like, okay, yeah, why not?
Yeah. And sure, I feel like, everyone, if they really wanted to, they could get involved. Like you said, contact your local neighbor nets, your local organizations who are accepting Muslim youth. A lot of them are actually very, very, very prominent organizations that encourage youth to get involved. So we just have to look around. We will find opportunity, inshallah. So thank you to both of you for coming on our show today. I mean, I personally, I'm not even the audience, but I feel confident more in my faith just from this 25-minute segment. So I appreciate both of you being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right, you guys, thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. And until next time, assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.